So this user says, I've been playing guitar for nearly 2 years. However, I find that I am just stuck playing the same things over and over. I'm getting pretty into my electric guitar over my acoustic at the moment, but I only know the A minor scale. What topics could anybody suggest that I could research and practice to start improving? These are good things to think about. I'd like to be able to use my looper pedal to its full potential and learn to solo over my own chord progressions. Any advice is appreciated. Many thanks, guys. So this is on r/guitar lessons. I saw this question and I honestly think that it would just make a good video in general. Maybe if this person ever sees this, or if anybody else can kind of relate, I wanted to touch up on it because this is a really common question that a lot of guitar players end up getting stuck at, is how do we get transition from the beginner phase into more of the, I guess, intermediate phase. And usually what tends to happen is the beginner phase, people usually refer to like rhythm stuff, like, you know, your power chords and, you know, your open chords, you know, your bar chords and things like that. But if you want to become a more sophisticated guitar player, if you want to be able to shred, if you want to be able to, like this guy wants to be able to solo over his looper pedal, select chord progressions and switches and stuff like that, that is a whole nother can of worms, and he wants to know some of the topics he should kind of research and look out for when he's doing it. So let's get into it and let's see if we can help. So obviously with this type of question, you kind of do have to hear how this person sounds so that way you can get a better understanding of where they're actually at, but we're just going to have to make do with what we have. The main things that people tend to neglect when it comes to getting out of the beginner phase into the intermediate is just a lack of structure in their practice routine. So I'm going to assume that this person is self-taught, because this is the type of thing that you'd want to bring up to a teacher. But assuming that they only have the internet to help, kind of the thing that I wanted to start talking about is structuring your practice routine. This would be my first kind of piece of advice for this person. Is if you don't have any sort of practice routine, it's going to be really hard for you to progress. So if your practice routine is really inefficient, if you're, you know, practicing 1 hour for one day, then you're missing a couple days, then you're doing 30 minutes another day, then you're doing 10 minutes another day, it's not going to give you any sufficient progress in your guitar playing, especially considering that you want to be able to solo. So number one, make sure that you have a consistent amount of time to practice every single day, whether that's 20 minutes, whether that's 2 hours, or anywhere in between that. I always recommend that people start with something like 20 or 30 minutes every single day, as long as you hit those every single day, right? It's the little steps that are going to make or break you. So with that being said, let's assume that this person has the time and the practice to do it. So the next thing that you got to figure out is what you're actually practicing. So what I always recommend all of my students start by doing is start figuring out the kind of like the big three for guitar, which is number one is your technique. So you got to work on things like your alternate picking, your legato, your left hand work, your sweep picking. So the three things that I usually tend to work on is things like speed and accuracy on the fretboard. So things like pick slanting, things like sweeping, things like going through your arpeggios, things like that, shred runs with the metronome, groups of 6, groups of 4, groups of 2, groups of 3. Those are the kinds of things that you really want to work on. Now you can also use solos and bits of solos as your exercise licks too. So what I like to do is I like to have at least one solo on the back burner that I can use. But with that being said, make sure you do your technique. So I'm going to assume that you have 30 minutes a day to practice. We're going to say you're going to do at least 10 minutes of technique every single day. That might change later in the video, but that's good to start. So as some of the other people are saying, they're saying to learn more scales and learn major and minor and diminished triads on the fretboard for fretboard knowledge. So here's the thing about that I disagree with is I recommend that this person learns more scales, but if they don't know what the scales do, what the point of them are, how to actually use them, and you're just memorizing shapes, you're going to be just ever so slightly above the same place that you were when you started asking this question. So if 30 days went by and you decided to memorize a bunch of scales, and you just decided to memorize a bunch of arpeggios, but you didn't learn the music theory behind it, it's not really going to do you a whole lot of good. So this is what I would recommend that you do instead. Start figuring out music theory level 1 if you don't have that already. So you can use things like musictheory.net, you can buy a book, you can watch a ton of videos on YouTube about the circle of fifths. So music theory level 1, what I define it as, and I've taken music theory in college, a couple of colleges, I've been teaching it for many years, and read a ton of books about music theory, and the most common things that you do in music theory level 1 are you learn about the 12 notes in music, the musical alphabet, you learn about scales, aka major scales and minor scales, and then of course you put that in the circle of fifths, and the circle of fifths will tell you how to use those major scales and those minor scales to create things like chords, chord progressions. It'll tell you the right key signature to use, it'll tell you the relative minor, that sort of thing. After that, from there, it's just building triads, diatonic stuff, and then going through seventh chords, things like that, inversions, and that's pretty much it. So to be honest with you, music theory level 1 is usually the hardest part that people have with music theory, but if you can get through all that stuff, typically for people, it can take anywhere from 3 months up to 12 months, depending on just how easy it is for you. I've seen people do it really fast. I've seen people take a really long time, like myself, but that's what you need to focus on for your music theory. So what I would recommend doing is, if you've got 30 minutes every single day, I would use it as some sort of alternating thing where every other day you're going to do about 10 minutes of music theory. Okay. And sometimes you might have to do more, sometimes you might have to do less, but that's just kind of how it is. I'm just assuming you only have 30 minutes, so you can obviously adjust this accordingly. Now, some of the other people in the comments are saying things like do the spider walk technique. The thing is again, it's like when you give, like, exercises are good, don't get me wrong, but you need to be doing the exercises correctly in order to actually be progressing here. So if you're just giving people exercises and they're using the wrong technique, it's going to make them better in some ways for sure. There's no disagreeing or denying that. But if they're not, having proper picking technique, if the angling of the pick is messed up, or if their, left hand is not close enough to the fretboard, if they're really stiff, if they're not holding the guitar right posture-wise, if they're not able to land on the next note at the same time, if their hands are out of sync, there's a bunch of different things. Sorry about that. I had to do a quick little reset. Ran out of space on my camera. But anyways, hey, what's up, guys? Really quick side note I forgot to mention. If you're this far into the video and you feel like you want to take a look at my structure, if you want to see the things that I do for my students, if you want to see the simplicity of how my structure and my curriculum works, what I do is I basically put everything inside of a masterclass, my entire curriculum with technique, with the music theory, with the fretboard knowledge. All that stuff is inside of my masterclass. It also comes with live Zoom calls. There's 4 a week, so that way we can actually work together on things. I can make sure you're doing everything right. We got backing tracks. We got everything with the 12-month practice plan. So many different things that I can't really tell you all in this quick little video. So go ahead and book a call with me. I'll show you what it all looks like, and we'll see if it's right for you. You have to make sure that you have the technique down before you do any exercises, or at least have someone look at it. So if I were this guy, I would send a video to me or a guitar teacher, or just get some guitar lessons or something. Just do something to make sure that you're doing things right, because you don't want to spend the next couple of years just kind of taking shots in the dark, right? So make sure that you have that. But then, yeah, the technique stuff, really, really important. Some people are saying cage. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So assuming that all the technique is good, that's when you want to start incorporating things like the sweep picking, things like the tapping, maybe if you want to do that, more legato exercise. That's when the exercises actually come in and you can start tracking your speed to make sure that you're not going to be caught without being able to do things like 16-note triplets or regular triplets or 16 notes at certain beats per minute. So let's assume that this person's going good with that and the technique is getting good. So the next thing that we got to work on is the fretboard knowledge. So some people were talking about things like cage. Somebody said learn the A minor scale all across the neck. Some people are saying to learn all 5 positions of minor pentatonic, learn to target the root, flat third, and flat seventh of the scale. All these things. Okay, so listen, I don't want to say there's a wrong way to learn how to play the guitar, because every teacher that you go to or every book that you read, every YouTube video that you watch will have a different approach. And I'm just going to give you, from my experience, what's worked best for me and what's worked best with all the students that I've helped. So when it comes to learning the fretboard, focus a lot less on memorizing the notes and focus more on one key every single month. So this is pretty much what I do with all my students. It's called the 12-month practice plan. There is a video if you want to go watch it on my channel. You can just click the link in the description and you'll find it. It's a really awesome video about basically how you can get the entire fretboard down in a single year. So there's a couple of prerequisites for it. So before you start that, you'll probably have to take a few weeks to make sure that you have the prerequisites down. It's not that much, but it's enough to where you need to figure some things out, which is basically just a few scales, obviously, but then also make sure that you're figuring out things like a couple of arpeggios. So what I do with my students is we learn the tonic and dominant and diminished arpeggios, but for you might just be okay with sticking with just tonic for now. So you can stick with that. The scales that I don't do all 5 pentatonic positions with my students. We are a lot more about less is more. And what I see with a lot of, like, you even just asking this questions, you got a pretty good amount of answers. And sometimes having too much information for something as difficult as a guitar can be pretty detrimental. So from my recommendation, learn the major and minor pentatonic scale. Know how the relative keys work. That'll tie into the music theory that we talked about that you're going to do every other day. Okay. And then from there, all you really have to do is learn the full minor scale and the full major scale. So that's diatonic 7-note one. I recommend 3-note per string. And then you're going to learn how to do all 4 of those scales going horizontally. So one person mentioned learn how to do the scale all across the fretboard. It's kind of like that. Okay. A lot of people have different methods to it. In my opinion, mine may not be the best. I'm not going to claim that mine is the best. I mean, I think mine is one of the best because it's easiest, and that's my approach to helping people, is I like to make things as easy as possible. So if you want the easiest method of moving across the neck, look at my video and it's in the description. So that's another piece of advice that I'd have for you. So we pretty much broken down like technique. You got to do that every single day for at least 10 minutes. The music theory, I would do it every other day for about 10 minutes. The fretboard knowledge, I would do that every day for about 5 or 10 minutes every single day, depending on if you're doing the music theory or not. So that brings you into about 20-ish, 25 minutes every single day. On those days that you're not doing music theory, that would be a good time to learn some songs, because learning songs and having repertoire, you can do that every other day if you want to. You can even probably squeeze it in every day, just have one day be less than the other one. A minor across the fretboard, we already talked about that. You're going to do those scales, pentatonic, 2 pentatonic scales, 2 full scales. You're going to do them vertically and horizontally. As far as song progression, you should try putting a tier list. If you have a goal playing, then that's not bad. From easiest to hardest, try to pick songs that don't have huge difficulty. This is really important for your playing development. That's actually pretty good advice, generally speaking. Like, usually when I work with beginners who want to learn, let's say metal, for example, we usually start with Sabbath songs. Like, we'll start with Paranoid or the intro to War Pigs or something like that. And then we'll move into things like Crazy Train or something like that, and then we will get into something that's like moderately difficult, like some parts of Master of Puppets, to really push them. And then from there, it's like then you can go into some of the harder stuff. So yeah, that's really, really good that you can do. You can start learning easy guitar solos. You know, there are plenty of easy guitar solos out there that you can start learning as well. A lot of people are saying caged. Now listen, I'm not going to say that caged is bad. I've already said my piece about caged, and it's not necessarily that it's bad, but I think that for somebody who is at this level, I think that caged would not help them tremendously. I think that there's just a lot of better ways of going about it, because what's going to end up happening is they're going to learn caged in one key, then they're going to stay in that key forever, and they're not going to move other keys. The key to, no pun intended, but the key to what I teach is moving keys, okay, and getting all that stuff done. So my camera's about to die, so I know I gotta record a video, will be saved, blah, 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 change the battery. Okay, so let's be quick here. Start with the major scale, blah blah blah, looping ideas. Yeah, so the last thing that I want to touch up on is when you start improvising. Again, we're doing one key every single month, okay? So after you do that prerequisite, all I would recommend that you do is just work on the key of C major / A minor for at least a month. Sometimes you even need more, but a month is usually pretty good to where you can start noodling with your improvising. Improvising has to do a lot with rhythm, so focus on your rhythm. That's where the technique comes in. Focus a lot on fretboard positioning. That goes into all the fretboard knowledge that we talked about. A little bit of music theory in there is going to be huge for you as well. And it's kind of a thing where the more you do it, the better you get at it. One guy did say stuff about music theory, ear training. So I'm all for that stuff, especially the music theory. Ear training and transcribing, it's a lot. And I'm just assuming that this person is like, I'm just taking that as if this person's the average player. I wouldn't recommend doing a ton of ear training yet. I would wait at least like a few months of knowing the music theory before you incorporate the ear training. Because if you're doing ear training without music theory, it's kind of ridiculous. But it seems like this person is like going crazy with all the music theory. So I mean, that's something that you can do. Look up Cage if you haven't. I wouldn't recommend it. Practice songs, yeah, that's good. Get good at major, minor sevenths. I mean, yeah, that's something you can throw in there if that's the style that you're going for. You'll realize that the difficult chords are just small changes to the major shape. Yep, that's true. Then thousands of videos out there. Pick songs that you like, then do the same thing with scales. Just an extension of the shapes you've been playing with, which is also true. So, I mean, listen, all these are decent pieces of advice. In my opinion, keep it as easy as you can. Do your technique for a little bit, do your fretboard knowledge for a little bit, and do your music theory for a little bit, and then find time to learn some songs. That's it. That's all you need. So that's what I recommend. I hope this helped. See you in the next video.